Tally-ho, Joolz Guides here with your Nick Meow beauty. How's your father? It's a fair cop governor. Today I'm standing outside Wandsworth Prison because I'm going to head over towards Clapham, or Clapham as posh people say. It's actually Britain's largest prison and it was built in 1851. It really looks quite foreboding actually. Those Victorians sure knew how to make scary looking lugubrious buildings. Really imagine this in a Charles Dickens story. I don't know if you've ever seen a film called Let Him Have It.
Yes, I have, yeah.
It was very sad actually. Around 1952 there was a fella called Derek Bentley and his accomplice. They were doing a robbery and they were interrupted by a policeman, and Bentley's accomplice, Chris Craig, had a gun. So Bentley said, "Let him have it, Chris," and Chris shot the policeman. But he claimed that he meant let him have it as in let him have the gun. So unfortunately Derek Bentley was sent here before he was eventually hanged. Even though he didn't fire the shots, he was over 18. And Chris Craig, who did shoot the policeman, was let off because he was under 18.
Horrendous.
It's a good film though. Was it Christopher Eccleston as well in that? And they also put Ronald Biggs in here, the famous great train robber. He escaped in 1965 and climbed the wall with a rope ladder. I don't know how he got hold of a rope ladder. Maybe tied some sheets together. It's a kind of, you'd think they'd be wise to that old trick. And he jumped on top of a laundry van and absconded to Brazil, where he stayed and recorded music for the Sex Pistols and stuff. Like he's in that film, The Great Rock and Roll Swindle, isn't he? They got him eventually though. Can't believe they stuck poor old Oscar Wilde in there as well. He did the first 6 months of his sentence there before they sent him off to Reading jail. Gross indecency was the charge, I believe.
I know she likes me, I know she likes me, because she says so, she is my lily.
This is a Clapham Junction. Clapham Junction used to be a signal box in the 1800s, and then it just grew to be the most busy station in Britain, or in the world, I think. But I don't think it is anymore. That's probably some place in Japan or something, isn't it? Actually, I quite like I don't know, it looks kind of Victorian, the architecture and stuff around here. That's Lavender Hill up there, as in the film The Lavender Hill Mob. Seen that film? I like The Lavender Hill Mob. That Debenhams stair was originally an Arding and Hobbs, and it's still got sort of some remnants from its original Art Deco looks, like the ceiling inside. And we remove so many of these things in London, but what I like about Clapham is it still retains a lot of these old buildings. Have you ever been to the Clapham Grand, Simon?
No, I haven't.
When it was opened up in 1900, it was a music hall for variety acts. Now it's just an occasional nightclub, theatre or events venue. Clapham was quite a backwater in those days, and there was a judge who first used the expression "the man on the Clapham Omnibus" to describe a hypothetical, reasonable person against whom the defendant's conduct can be measured. And it became kind of legal terminology. And ever since then, it's passed into common parlance as meaning, yeah, your ordinary bloke in the street, your man on the Clapham Omnibus. Apparently, in those days, Clapham was a pretty unremarkable place. But I tell you what, it isn't anymore. Pretty expensive around here now. Funnily enough, Clapham Junction isn't actually in Clapham, it's in Battersea, so it shouldn't be called Clapham Junction Station. But here, interestingly, around the corner, just in Barnard's Road, just behind Marks and Spencer's, is what looks to be an ordinary boring car park. But this is where MI5 used to get their cars souped up and fixed. So James Bond, no, he was MI6, wasn't he? Anyway, they used to get a sort of surveillance equipment and stuff attached to their cars. You know, this is where they'd make them invisible, things like that. I think the Russians discovered that they were doing it here, but they moved it to a hidden location now, which I am not aware of. But yeah, it used to be right in there. So this is Clapham Common. Clapham, originally, I think in Anglo Saxon, Clap was from Clopp meaning hill and Ham meaning village. Is it?
Yeah, Hamlet.
Yeah, like I was in Hamlet. So yeah, so it was village on the hill. And it was only 100 people lived here in the year 1100. But after the plague, loads of people started to move south because they wanted to escape the disease in the city. I think the most famous person who moved here at the time was Samuel Pepys. And by the 1800s, it really started to attract much wealthier people, and they started building all these grand houses. I think that, yeah, those ones over there, I know that Vivienne Westwood lives in one, I think. And since then, lots of other people have moved here, like Graham Greene, who I see lived in that house right over there. Graham Greene, who wrote The Third Man, Brighton Rock, The Quiet American. J.K. Rowling lives around here somewhere as well. Maybe that's why that street over there was called Severus Street. Yeah, maybe that's where she got the name, Severus Snape. Yeah.
Lily of Laguna, she is my lily and my rose.
This is the Holy Trinity Church where William Wilburforce used to worship with a group of Evangelical Christians and hosted meetings of what was known as the Clapham sect, who were instrumental in getting the Slave Trade Act passed in 1807 and the abolition of slavery itself in 1833.
Travel along, singing a song, side by.
One of the things I really like about South London is that they've still got quite a lot of the Victorian architecture. I mean, a lot of it seems to be red brick buildings that looks like a workhouse from Oliver Twist or something. But you get quite a few of these nice things, and this is excellent. You know what this is? This is a stink pole. Now, around the middle of the 19th century, we had something called the Great Stink, which was where the sewers were overflowing and the rivers were disgusting and full of detritus and smelly feces. Sometimes the sewers would even explode. The one down near the Fleet River, there was actually an explosion there near King's Cross. So when they developed the Victorian sewage system in the 1850s, they installed a whole bunch of these stink pipes. So actually what they are is ventilation shafts for to let out all the smelly, pooey fumes from the sewers, and also to release pressure so that they've got no smelly explosions. And it took the smelly fumes all the way from the sewers all the way out and delivered them over above the heads of the Victorian public. I call them pongy poles. Some of them are actually really beautiful and ornate, like the one down in Kennington Cross is quite a famous one, but many people might just walk past this and not notice it. They probably just think it's a lamppost. A remnant of Victorian England. I dare say if you light a match at the top of one, you'd probably get a flame. I just want to say that I do not recommend lighting your own farts, by the way. I mean, you can if you like, but I take no responsibility for the consequences. I was just talking about him the other day. Look, this bench is in honour of legendary actor Jeremy Brett. His love, laughter and immense courage in the face of adversity inspires us all. He was Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, of course, yes.
Then he also was in My Fair Lady. He's the one who sings, I have often walked down this street before. This bandstand was actually built in 1889. They renovated it at some great expense, but it's hardly ever used except for kids to play on. And I think that is the one, though, that David Bowie has a nice photograph of himself in the 60s. There's a little churchyard just along the way. Used to be Lambeth's finest array. Tombstones, epitaphs, trees, flowers, all that jazz, till the war came along and someone dropped a bomb on the lot. Just outside Clapham South Station is this curious looking building. And this is excellent. This is a bomb shelter. They built 8 of them during the war all across London. There's definitely one at Belsize Park. There's one near Goodge Street. There's a few others dotted around the place. Transport for London do tours, and you can go down and have a look at all the miles of tunnels underneath, and they've still got the old graffiti and the old original signs from the 1940s down there. It's quite amazing, actually. They didn't really finish them until 1942, though, so that was when the Blitz had already finished. But then again, this area was heavily targeted, and around 1944 they did have to reopen it, and people did use it. It could contain 8,000 people down there. It was a proper bomb shelter. Yeah, Clapham was heavily targeted in the war. Not quite sure what they were trying to hit. The Common, the bandstand, I don't know. In 1948, the first West Indian immigrants to the UK were housed in here. I think 200 of them or so. They stayed in there for several weeks whilst accommodation could be found for them. And eventually, a lot of them, I think, settled in Brixton because there was some labour exchange there or something, which is why there's quite a large West Indian population in Brixton.
It's hard to comprehend the space of the tunnels that must be underneath our feet right now.
Well, I would go in and show you, but I have to be honest, it does cost £38.50 to enter, and I very highly doubt that they'll let me in with my camera, because no one ever seems to let me in with my camera anywhere. But you do, for that price, you do get free entry into the London Transport Museum.
Oh, okay.
That's okay. I never thought it would happen with me and the girl from Clapham out on a windy common. That night I ain't forgotten. You know that song?
Yeah.
Up the Junction by Squeeze. This must be one of those boundary markers. I like stuff like that. Can't read what it says on it though. Besides being one of the largest green spaces in South London, Clapham Common does also have the dubious honour of being the location and venue of the first ever modelling job that I did, which was right here in this lake.
Fascinating, Julian.
I know.
Sorry, go on. Sorry.
How dare you? It's interesting in that you don't have cigarette ads anymore. They're not allowed anymore. And then I went on to the huge career and success that I am now enjoying, Simon.
It's quite extraordinary.
You're just jealous.
Extraordinary rise.
According to this, that was the largest bandstand in London. As if anyone cares. I didn't realise so many famous people lived here. Look at that. Benjamin Franklin, he pops up all over the place. What's he doing here? At least there's no Charles Dickens. He shows up bloody everywhere. I love that they still have these original shop fronts on the newsagents down here. They're so characterful. I got rid of those up where I live.
What if the sky should fall?
You want to be really careful if you're drunk on this platform. Speaking of which, I could do with a drink, Simon. What about you? Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit the red block button. Oh, let's do that again. Oh, thanks for watching. And if you enjoy my films, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, the red button below. And if you're interested in having a private tour of London, then just visit my website, joolzguides.com, where you can find out more about me and even throw me a donation on PayPal or become my patron as if you wanted to. Well, cheers, Simon.
Cheers, my friend.
What if the sky should fall?